news of the day.
Mr. Zimmerman, have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
With values that never die.
There are certainly a lot of controversies or scandals brewing right now when it comes to the Obama administration.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Dealing with the federal government is not always high-tech, and it's not always user-friendly.
The stories that matter.
This is a massive escalation in the tension here in Egypt.
The issues that count.
I don't know why the media tries to make this into a sensation. We have never hidden the fact that we supply Syria with weapons.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
He's got the red, white, blue, flying high on a farm. Semper Fi tattooed on his left arm.
Welcome to American Heartland with Dr. Grace. I am your host, the editor of Politics and Culture at worldtribune.com. Thank you so much for joining me on this 4th of July. Happy 4th to everybody out there. And in this show, we are nonetheless going to continue with all of the stunning news, not just of the last week, but of the last 2 weeks. We have so much to catch up on. So it is a 4th of July, and we are in a celebratory mood, but our work never ends. The big and breaking news most recently, Hillary Clinton caught in a series of lies. Big lies regarding her emails. The State Department released 3,000 out of 55,000 emails that she had given them. Remember, those were the handpicked ones where she believed there was probably nothing to worry about. Those were the ones that she didn't delete, the ones that she turned over to the State Department. They released 3,000 of those. And that was essentially because of the Freedom of Information Act. A judge ordered that these emails be released. And there's going to be a steady stream of these all the way until the end of this year. So if this is any indication, if what we're about to discuss now is any indication of how damaging this is going to be, it's going to be one long year for Hillary Clinton. The emails are absolutely stunning. And it's not just the personal glimpses that we get about how she operates. For example, that she would actually email an aide to get her an iced tea. For example, that there was an extensive email correspondence between her and her assistant, Uma Abedin, regarding a fax machine. I mean, these are laughable moments, and they certainly reveal her to be a very pampered Secretary of State and also an incompetent one. But what's really damaging is the substance of the emails themselves. But before we get into that, I want to take you back to the press conference when she was asked specifically about the fact that she had an independent email account that was not a .gov account and that she had her own private server. And I want you to remember what she said back then. Roll it.
After I left office, the State Department asked former secretaries of state for our assistance in providing copies of work-related emails from our personal accounts. I responded right away and provided all my emails that could possibly be work-related, which totaled roughly 55,000 printed pages, even though I knew that the State Department already had the vast majority of them. We went through a thorough process to identify all of my work-related emails and deliver them to the State Department. At the end, I chose not to keep my private personal emails about planning Chelsea's wedding or my mother's funeral arrangements, condolence notes to friends, as well as yoga routines, family vacations, the other things you typically find in inboxes. No one wants their personal emails made public, and I think most people understand that and respect that privacy.
Well, you know, she came under fire immediately after that press conference for a series of lies. One of the lies that had been uncovered immediately was that she had said that, you know, Bill Clinton emailed her, and that too was part of the personal cash that she had kept to herself. So there's a whole string of lies that were detected at the time. And since then, more and more lies have been revealed. For example, in that press conference, she had said that she had delivered all the work-related emails that could possibly be work, only the private ones she had kept. And we know subsequently, Sid Blumenthal, one of the aides that was working for her off the books, paid by the Clinton Foundation, not paid by the American government. She was sending all kinds of work-related information, and they were corresponding on work. And all of those emails were not given to the State Department. It was Sid Blumenthal himself who has given them. And that shows us that in her selection process, she omitted to give all of the work-related emails. So that is a lie, and she's caught red-handed in that respect. But it gets even worse with this current cache of emails that have just come out right now. Remember, she said that in defending the private server and this selection process, that, America's national security was not at risk by her having a private server, and that, in fact, there was nothing to worry about. We know subsequently that a private server can easily be hacked, and sensitive information can fall into the hands of our enemies. And guess what? Before the State Department released the current cache, they had to withhold dozens of emails because they were considered classified, considered confidential, a level below secret. So the really bad news for Hillary Clinton is, contrary to what she told us in trying to reassure us that America's national security was not being put at risk, now the State Department is saying, wait a minute, some of this information we have is so sensitive that we can't release it right now to the public. And that is a big lie. That is a lie that is going to haunt her, because it shows that she was really derelict in protecting America's national security while she was Secretary of State. Now, those of you that followed Benghazi very carefully, we already know that. We already know that she's completely incompetent and derelict in her basic duties, leading to the death of 4 Americans. But there's even more ammo right here, because this private server basically put in jeopardy lots of people that she was corresponding with. Remember, she had access to the schedules of where top American diplomats and office holders were going to be at various times. And what if those fell into the hands of our enemies, leading to assassinations? I mean, this was negligent and extremely dangerous. So this is going to haunt her. Classified emails that are now classified were on that private server, and that is extremely dangerous. Moreover, this aide that was working for her, Sid Blumenthal, he had fallen on the outs with the Obama administration. Her boss, President Barack Obama, and the entire administration had told her, we don't want this guy anywhere near our official work. And yet, because she's Hillary Clinton, because she doesn't have to abide by everybody's rules, she was nonetheless working closely with him. That's what these emails also show. When she was asked before this recent release, what was the nature of her relationship with Sid Blumenthal, she said, once in a while he would just give me unsolicited advice. Not so. She was soliciting the advice. We know that. That's what's in the email correspondence. A couple of times she says, hey, are you awake now? It was 10 or 10:30. Let's talk now. She was calling him to get information. And you know what else? She was paying him. She was paying him from the Clinton Foundation. And this is a really tangled web, because the Clinton Foundation was in a direct conflict of interest with her work as Secretary of State. And she was paying Sid Blumenthal from the money gathered from the Clinton Foundation. This is unbelievable. As I've said many times, we need a criminal investigation into her behavior. I think if it was any other person and this cache of emails had been released, they would be laughed out of the public square. And not only laughed out of the public square, persecuted out of the public square. And you know what? The lies are so plentiful. The lies, not only that she told, but everybody else trying to cover up when this scandal broke. Because everybody knew that she had this private email. Remember when this scandal first emerged, people were saying, oh, no, I didn't know anything about it. It was her thing. Even the president was denying it. And we all scoffed at it. I mean, of course, the Secretary of State is emailing all kinds of people. So they saw very clearly that she was using her own private email. And these emails show that David Axelrod, Rahm Emanuel, and so many other at the State Department were corresponding with her through this private email account. Another series of lies exposing the corruption all around her. In addition, she was occasionally corresponding with members of the media. So the media, too, knew about this, and everybody turned a blind eye. And you know what? Regarding Bill Clinton, there's a telling exchange here. It's telling about the nature of their marriage. And we've said it many, many times. This is a sham of a marriage. I think it was no more clearly evident in this entire recent batch how distant Bill and Hillary truly are. He was appointed as a special envoy to Haiti. And you know what? She didn't know about it. He hadn't picked up the phone to call her. She found out through emails via various aides who told her about it. And if you think of phony, she is the quintessential phony. It's a pack of lies from the top right down to the bottom. From the most sacred, like what is the real nature of her marriage and her family, to the most sacred regarding the safety of everybody around her and her duties as Secretary of State. The corruption that we see in these emails is immense. A total lack of regard for her boss, Barack Obama, doing things off the books, away from the eyes of her boss, and that's obviously just the tip of the iceberg. In addition, illegal activity, such as using government computers to help in the raising of money to help her pay off her previous campaign debts. That is also not just unethical, but illegal. So what do we have in this cache of emails? So much damaging information. She is presented as very sly, disrespectful of her boss, having a sham marriage, and embroiling so many others in her corruption. Not only as Secretary of State, but whatever else it was that she was doing with the Clinton Foundation. This is a huge tangled web, and the more we peel this onion, the worse it gets for Hillary Clinton. But you're only going to hear that on talk radio. You're only going to hear this in some organs of opinion, on some news organizations, tidbits of it flowing on Fox News, for example. But the New York Times, for example, if you read their coverage of her emails, it's mind-boggling. This is a head by Peter Baker. This is the title. Emails show Hillary Clinton trying to find her place. And this is one of the lines in the coverage about these emails. She was trying to find her place at the head of a cabinet run by the man who had vanquished her. She nursed concerns about whether she was, in the right meetings and whether the president or his people were holding grudges against her. It is unbelievable the way that they're not covering the basic news coming out of this email cache. This New York Times report also says that, we really can't make a complete assessment of Hillary's tenure as Secretary of State based on this, because so much of what she was really doing was in phone calls. So that's how they're trying to camouflage the fact that she deleted documents that belong to the public. No. She didn't do anything wrong because at the time she was conducting so much of her business with phone calls. And what we see is, quote unquote, an exceedingly cautious politician, acutely aware that anything she wrote could someday be read by a wider audience, end of quote. You know, it's not true. Even in that statement, it's not. We don't see an exceedingly cautious politician in these emails. We see a reckless politician in these emails. We see somebody who is so consumed by her greed and her disregard for her boss that she is willing to break ethical rules and legal rules. That's not caution. That's reckless behavior. And you know what? It's baffling to me that the New York Times is even trying to present her as somebody that throughout most of her work as Secretary of State was trying to help others. For example, they write, in a few instances, Mrs. Clinton asked aides what could be done to help a 10-year-old Yemen girl who felt oppressed, or a Turkish Kurd who was about to be sent back to a country where he had been tortured, or Christians under siege in Iraq. Cover up and more cover up. The New York Times is trying to present her as cautious and compassionate, and that's not what these emails show. Instead, they show the exact opposite: corrupt, reckless, and selfish. And what you're seeing now is murmuring all across Washington, D.C., all across the political class, even amongst Democratic circles. She's weak and she can be taken. The people that are roaring now are folks like Joe Biden, Jim Webb, who's just announced his candidacy, and Bernie Sanders, who is soaring amongst Democrats. This is Dr. Gray speaking the truth.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
About destruction, don't you know that you can count me out? You know it's gonna be all right.
It's a new America on this July 4th. The revolution is underway. The revolutionaries are winning. So said the Supreme Court, with a landmark ruling permitting same-sex marriage across the land. It doesn't matter that voters have rejected same-sex marriage. It doesn't matter that states that sued the government and put their petition up all the way to the Supreme Court said, we don't want this. It doesn't matter. You know why? Because some justices know best. And these justices have determined that the people's voice is less relevant than their benign, benevolent thoughts. The Supreme Court is beginning to act as though they are benevolent dictators. They are making up rights that don't exist, and they are actually taking away the rights of the people to shape this republic as we see fit. This ruling by the Supreme Court is a dagger not only aimed straight at traditional marriage and Christianity itself, but also at our very republic. And there's a scathing dissent by Scalia, one of the conservative justices who disagreed. I thought one of the lines in that dissent was so powerful, was this, quote, and to allow the policy question of same-sex marriage to be considered and resolved by a select, patrician, highly unrepresentative panel of 9 is to violate a principle even more fundamental than no taxation without representation. No social transformation without representation. That is a brilliant line. There should be no social transformation without representation. That is far more important than no taxation without representation. And we fought a revolution. We fought a war for the principle of no taxation without representation. And now the Supreme Court wants to transform our society, wants to ignore the will of the people, wants to transgress a biblical mandate about the nature of marriage, which is considered sacred. The Supreme Court wants to do all of that and expect Americans to just lay down and take it. On this 4th of July, I say no. And if our founding fathers were willing to go to the ends, to the very ends, all the means at their disposal, in order to take a stand against their British tyrants on the principle that on economic matters, they're the ones who had to have the final say. We have to reflect today. Who has the final say on the very fabric of our society? Is it them or is it us? That's what I'm thinking about on this July 4th. Who has the final say about who we are as a people? Now, the left is celebrating this. They're gloating. They think they've won. Listen to Barack Obama taking a victory lap.
I had a chance to do the Rose Garden celebration of the court decision around same-sex marriage. I did not have a chance to comment on how good the White House looked in rainbow colors. That made it a really good week. To see people gathered in an evening outside on a beautiful summer night and to feel whole and to feel accepted and to feel that they had a right to love, that was pretty cool. That was a good thing.
No regrets on it.
That was a good thing. And the only bad part about it was I couldn't go out and peek at it myself because then I would have had to clear out all the people, or Secret Service would have. So I could only reflect on it from a television screen.
Notice how the left has suddenly changed the language about same-sex. They've been doing this over the course of the last couple of years. Suddenly, it's, gays and lesbians, they have a right to love. Whoever denied them a right to love? We're not talking about love. We're not even talking about sex, because this society has permitted, allows, tolerates, in many quarters celebrates same-sex sexual relations. We're not talking about those things. But again, they twist and turn the language around. So that if you don't support what happened, then you're not a loving person. That's basically what he's saying. And he's also taking a victory lap, disregarding the fact that there are millions of people who voted against this. Is he the president of a faction, or is he the president of the whole country? No, he's clearly the president of one faction. And he's going to twist and turn the words around to suit that one faction. Those who oppose same-sex marriage love everybody. In fact, it is precisely because we so love everybody that we oppose same-sex marriage. We love children and recognize that a family that has a mother and a father is the best for children. Our opposition to same-sex marriage comes from a deep love and regard for children. We also love gays and lesbians very much, but not their deeds. And because we love them, we often say, ultimately, that is a dead end. That lifestyle is a dead end. It's not out of hate. You know, when you reprimand, for example, just want to make an analogy. If you reprimand a child for doing something that you think is wrong for that child, do you hate that child? You love the child. You're just saying, I'm sorry, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. Ultimately, Christians believe that there is a natural order and that our mission on this earth is to do God's will, and that if we do God's will, that's what makes us happy. And when we defy God's will, that's going to lead us to unhappiness. And those standards apply to everybody. That applies, for example, to an adulterer. If you catch an adulterer and you say, you know what you're doing is wrong, is it because, oh my God, you hate him? You can't stand him. You have no love in your heart. No. It's precisely because you love him. You say, listen, the marriage that you have is sacred. It's mandated by the Lord himself. And once you get off of this path, you're going to go down the road to your own personal unhappiness. And I'm telling you this for your own good. So the president is twisting words around, as he loves to do. And the liberal media goes along with it. And you know what this means? This means now that if you oppose same-sex marriage, let alone the fact that the president himself opposed it just a couple of years ago, was he unloving then? We have to ask him that. Was he unloving then? Was he a bigot then? What's going to happen next is there's going to be more and more persecution of Christians and of their tax-exempt status and of their right to be Christians in the workplace and in society at large. I'll give you an example. There are activists calling for the ouster of chaplains from the military. In the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision on marriage, there are activists who are saying that chaplains who sincerely believe that marriage should be a sacred union between a man and a woman have no place in the American military. Because they would then be discriminating against those practitioners of same-sex marriage within the armed forces. You know that there is a veteran that commits suicide every 65 minutes. And you know, we should devote a whole show to that. Every 65 minutes in America, there's a veteran who commits suicide. 22 veterans kill themselves every day. And you now have activists that are going to want to take away chaplains from the American military, men and women who serve this country and about to face death. One of the few areas of solace that they have is to talk to a chaplain while they're in harm's way or when they're wounded or after they hurt somebody, after they killed somebody. That's a support that they need. But oh no, guess what? Christianity is going to be presented as the religion of hate. We have to resist the very language that is being used. And it gets worse. Same-sex marriage is the tip of the iceberg because what's coming next is polygamy. Already, there's an article in Real Clear Politics saying from gay marriage to polygamy. And the logic is inexorable. You've got to go from gay marriage to polygamy. If you can permit two men to get married, I don't see, obviously because quote unquote, that's what makes them happy. Well, listen, if one man wants to have 3, 4, 5, 10 wives and that makes him happy, the Supreme Court's got to say, go for it. How are you going to stop it? You can't stop it. And believe it or not, as a traditionalist, and I've got to weigh, 2 men getting married which to me is totally unnatural, or one man with 4 women, well, I'm like, I've got to think, well, at least we've got some aspect of the natural order in choice B. Some aspect of men and women working together still exists in polygamy. None of it does in same sex. What we are talking about on this July 4th, 2015 is, as one commentator said, the end of Judeo-Christian civilization. And is that the road that we truly want to go down? Listen to how the liberals are gloating at how they have destroyed the very fabric of our society.
You know, the reason why, the conservative part of our country has changed a lot. I was going to say go crazy, but I won't. I don't think it's rational. I think it's because of that. Because of America is finally growing up. It has a black president. It has gay marriage. Pot is legal in 4 states, and medical is legal in many, many more. This is the America we always thought, the liberal half, we would become. This is the one they did not want to see. And it drives them crazy. It just drives them crazy. Yeah.
You're right. It drives me crazy. And you know what? It's not because finally we're growing up. Quite the opposite. It's because we are slipping into adolescence. It's because the adolescents have taken over. The irrational justices are winning, not the ones who are reasoned. And those who are prepared to defy the very dictates of our Judeo-Christian heritage, they are the ones that are winning. And that's the reason that it drives traditionalists like me crazy. Because it is sad that we are throwing away, without all that much thought, the very principles that have made us free, prosperous, and even on occasion good. We're throwing it all away for the fake promises of a liberal utopia that will never come. The revolution is here, and it looks ugly.
The waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone.
The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Well, in the news, there is one outspoken man for American sovereignty and American borders. It is Donald Trump. He has joined the GOP race, and he is rising. He is now rising in national polls and also neck and neck with Jeb Bush in Iowa and New Hampshire. The Donald is on deck. He has made waves across the media landscape. In his statement running for office, he made what has been dubbed as an offensive statement regarding illegals. This is what set off the firestorm. Roll it.
The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. Thank you. It's true. And these are the best and the finest. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people. But I speak to border guards, and they tell us what we're getting. And it only makes common sense. It only makes common sense. They're sending us not the right people. It's coming from more than Mexico. It's coming from all over South and Latin America, and it's coming probably from the Middle East.
Because he said that, His Miss America pageant is under attack. Univision won't run it. You have stations that are going to drop it. Macy's has dropped one of his products, and the left-wing media is all in a furor. So we have a media firestorm over comments that, to most of us, just sound like what we often talk about in private conversation. It just sounds like, guess what? The truth, the obvious. But no, not in politically correct America. Now, I support Donald Trump in what he said. I support him in his vision on curtailing the American border. I support him in his international vision regarding how we've got to manage our trade. I think we've got to get a lot tougher, and he is really eloquent on those topics. I love what he stands for in all of those regards. And I love it that he's passionate, and I especially love it that he doesn't back down. He's tough. He doesn't give a quarter. He's a great debater. He takes no prisoners. And he has a huge record of achievement as a businessman and as an executive leader. For all those reasons, I really like Donald Trump, and I think he has energized the race. However, does Donald Trump get Dr. Grace's vote ultimately? No. And I'll tell you why. I've said on this show before, I support Mike Huckabee, and I still do, and I will until and beyond voting day. The problem with Donald Trump is this man has had a life, a very colorful life. And my great fear is that those colors may not all be big, bright, and beautiful. He is a man that is on his third marriage, divorced 2 times. And the first, there was tremendous scandal regarding it. He basically left his wife for another woman. Not only that, he's had women in multiple relationships that have borne him children. So he's got kids from different marriages. We talked in the last segment about the destruction of Judeo-Christian morality. And yet, the GOP is about to consider electing a man who's on his third wife with multiple children from multiple marriages. I don't see how, in any way, shape, or form, that is the embodiment of our most sacred values and sacred principles. Moreover, I'm really afraid with this kind of a track record regarding what else is there. Remember with Herman Cain? He was a married man, but then the women started coming forward. I remember George Will said, you know, where there's 4 women, there's 24. I'm really worried about Donald Trump. There's 3 women that we know of. Are there 23? What do they know? What will they say? It's not just what we know, but the pattern of behavior doesn't bespeak well. And is this what we want as the Republican Party? I know he's alluring. I know he's appealing. There's a lot I like about him. And I tell you what, if it's him versus Hillary Clinton, I'm all in his camp. But it seems to me we're becoming a lot like Europe. You know, in Europe, their problems are so severe that when you mention somebody's private life, they go, well, who cares what he does in his private life because our problems are so big, we just need him to fix it. That's what America's becoming. We're looking at Donald Trump. 3 marriages. Who cares? Who cares? Let him have 3 marriages, kids from multiple relationships. We don't care. We used to be a city on a hill. Forget that. Forget that, Dr. Grace. Forget it. We just need him to fix some big problems. Get him in there. That's how Europe talks. Berlusconi. Who cares? Multiple affairs, women in and out. Who cares? We need Berlusconi. That's what the Italians said. We talk about this country becoming Sodom and Gomorrah. We conservatives talk about it all the time. A man that's been married 3 times that might be the next president of the United States. I don't know. That looks a little like Sodom and Gomorrah to me. And then he is not very good on the social issues. I mean, he says he's for traditional values, but listen to how he answers questions about his marriages. Roll it.
But what do you say to a lesbian who's married or a gay man who's married who says, Donald Trump, what's traditional about being married 3 times?
Well, they have a very good point. But, you know, I've been a very hard-working person. I have a great marriage. I have a great wife now. And my 2 wives were very good. And I don't blame them. But I was working, maybe like you, 22 hours a day.
I'm not asking you to explain your divorces.
I know.
But
I'm just saying I blame myself because my business was so powerful for me. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
But what do you say to a lesbian or a gay man who are married and say...
I really don't say anything. I mean, I'm just, Jake, I'm for...
Let's talk about same-sex marriage. You said a few years ago that you were evolving on that issue. Where are you?
I'm traditional marriage. It is changing rapidly.
But what do you say to a lesbian who's married or a gay man who's married who says, Donald Trump, what's traditional about being married 3 times?
Well, they have a very good point, but, you know.
They have a very good point. Of course they have a very good point, Donald. And, you know, did you listen to that? Did you listen to that clip? When he's trying to explain, you know, why it's not marriage number 1, folks. I'm sorry. It's not even marriage number 2. You know, maybe we could swallow 1 divorce, you know, as a public who's willing to elect this guy. Okay, maybe 1 divorce. You know, we kind of buried it with Ronald Reagan. Okay, he was divorced 1 time. Let's just turn the other way. He's a good guy. You know, let's get him in there. But, you know, when you're on marriage number 3, we got to ask a couple of questions now. And he's trying to explain it like, you know, I don't know, maybe my business was so powerful. Well, he's basically saying, you know, I don't know, maybe I was just so great professionally. That's why I divorced. No, Donald, that's not why your wives left you. And that's not why you divorced. It wasn't because you were such a hardworking guy. Oh, they just couldn't take the hard work anymore, Donald. No, it's because you were cheating on your wife. Because you're an adulterer. Because you can't stop chasing women. And you look at the women that he marries, you know, he doesn't marry like, you know, oh, we look at the woman, we go, oh my God, he just married her for personality. That's why he chose her. I mean, just look at that personality. Look at his current wife. I look, I go, oh my God, what a woman of such substance, such integrity, such depth. Oh my God, Donald, what a family man. He marries, you know, a really attractive model. Okay, fine. Be happy with your model. But the point that I'm making is, as conservatives, is this who we're going to elect to represent us? As we talk about, you know, we really got to fight all of these social ills. Is this going to be our champion? And he says it himself, well, you know what? I'm evolving on the issue. You know, I'm for traditional marriage, but I'm evolving. Of course you got to be evolving. Who knows? For all we know, you might be evolving into marriage number 4 before all is said and done. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. I just cannot put my own credibility on the line as a commentator and say, yeah, this is our guy. I just can't do that. Moreover, as a sincere Christian, I really believe that we need a real Christian in the White House. And Donald Trump just doesn't fit that bill, and that worries me because what we need now is to build on a solid foundation. And Donald Trump today is what Marco Rubio was a few weeks ago. He's the latest shiny new object. I'm not falling for the latest shiny new object. Love his stances on a lot of things. Support him on his comments. Love his input in the race. But he's not my champion.
Without a home, not without a star.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace. The stories that matter, the issues that count. This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.
Shut up, just shut up, shut up, 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 just shut up.
And it's time to look around the nation and find the candidate who deserves to be told to just shut up. This week, it is obvious in the wake of the emails that have come pouring forth from the State Department, showing what a liar Hillary Clinton is. We also see that so many folks in the upper echelons of the Democratic establishment are bold-faced liars. And the biggest liar of all is David Axelrod. He has been an advisor to Obama, and he has been supporting Hillary and Bill in this entire email controversy. He lied outright when he was initially asked about his knowledge of Hillary's use of this private email account and private server. Roll it.
Well, I think it is unusual. He was the chief of staff. I confess I didn't. I was there. I was the senior advisor. I didn't know that.
So if you did find out when you were there, would you say, hey, whoa, wait a minute, guys, should we all talk about this? Would you flag it?
I might have asked a few questions about that. Look, I don't think, again, the question is, what are people focused on? What do they care about? They care about their lives. They care about being able to meet their bills. They care about how their kids are going to do in the future. And that's where their focus is. And that's what the gamble of the Clinton campaign is, that people don't really care about that.
Well, we do care about it. We do care if somebody's saying the truth or not. And then listen to Axelrod himself caught in his lie. Roll it.
So you knew she was using a private account when other administration officials were using government accounts?
Yeah, well, everybody, most people in the government had private accounts for private sorts of emails. I was referred to that account when I wanted to send her a note because she had been injured, and I wanted to just send her a note telling her I hope she was feeling better. And I sent it to that account. And I've always said that I knew she had that account. What I didn't know was that she used that account exclusively, and I certainly didn't know that she had her own server. Those were things I just learned with everybody else.
Oh, he just learned it. You know what, David Axelrod? You knew about it. It was obvious. You and Barack Obama had a Hillary Clinton problem on your hands. She was the runner-up in the Democratic primary. She was in a foul mood. And so when she took office as Secretary of State, there was a strategy. Let's give her that position, but let's create a bunch of tsars. Tsars to really run aspects of foreign policy. Don't let her do too much. And because this monster needed to be appeased, when she did her own thing, you and Barack Obama and everybody at the State Department just turned a blind eye and refused to enforce protocol, ethics, and even to ensure that there was no risk to the American public. David Axelrod didn't do his job properly. Neither did the commander-in-chief. Neither did members of the State Department, who saw clearly that she was violating the very rules that had been established by the man that she was supposed to serve and by the American government that she was there to serve. David Axelrod, you're just as much a shameless liar as she is. And you know what? Regarding this entire controversy, when you're caught red-handed, just shut up.
Hey, let's get it now.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to be aggravated on this July 4th. I'm going to have the time of my life anyways, because there is so much beauty all around us. We still live in the greatest nation, not only in the world today, but in the history of the world. And I am going to celebrate all the things that are still working with hope and prayers that we can turn around the things that are not. And what I especially pray for is that we get good leaders. We need good leaders, men of character and of principle, women of character and of principle. We need virtuous folks to get us back to the city upon a hill that we said we were going to be when we founded this great republic. In the meantime, I'm going to laugh, and I'm going to laugh at politically incorrect statements and politically incorrect humor. And none of this offends me, and I think we've got to change this culture of we're offended at everything that anybody says. It's pathetic. Listen to this comedian who I think nails it.
This is joy that is the other side of health and safety, which is a small oppression of our physical movement, so we can't do anything without permission from the state. And political correctness is the oppression of our intellectual movement, so no one says anything anymore in case somebody else gets offended. What happens if you say that and someone gets offended? Well, they can be offended. What's wrong with being offended? When did sticks and stones may break my bones stop being relevant? Isn't that what you teach children, for God's sake? That's what you teach toddlers. He called me an idiot. Don't worry about him. He's a dick. Now you have adults going, I was offended, and I have rights. Well, so what? Be offended. Nothing happens. You're an adult. Grow up. Deal with it. I was offended. I don't care.
I don't care if you're offended by my Christian principles. I don't care if you're offended by offbeat humor that, pokes at the sensibilities of various ethnic groups. You know what's happening in this country, too? We're taking ourselves so seriously. We take everything that everybody says so seriously that we're depriving ourselves of the very gift of laughter. I can't remember when I went to a comedy and really, really laughed. I crave a great American comedy, yet I find so many of our comedies juvenile. A lot of it is slapstick humor. It's not really intelligent humor. It's not satirical. And I like satire. That's what makes me laugh. I like it when somebody pokes fun at conventional wisdom, says something off color, says something that will even break down ethnic barriers. I think all of that is really hilarious. I mean, Jackie Mason used to make all kinds of jokes that I thought were so funny. I think some of his jokes nowadays will be considered completely unacceptable. And as we're seeing across our society, the dumbing down of America, we're also seeing we're putting ourselves in a straitjacket about what we can and cannot say, and as a result, we don't laugh as much. We can't laugh as much. Soon laughter itself is going to be offensive. Oh, you laughed at me. That offended me. Are you making fun of me? You're hurting my feelings? I think Stephen Hughes hit it right on the head. If somebody says they're offended, the rebuttal is, I don't care. Be offended. Who cares if you're offended? Why do we quake and quiver every time somebody's offended? We really have to resist this movement of public persecution of people because they say the wrong thing, even when it's something funny. Oh my God, it offends others. So be offended and get a thick skin and grow up and toughen up. That's what America used to be. But no, nowadays, we're allowed to offend some groups, legitimately, constantly offend some groups, like Christians, call them haters when we're the religion of peace. That's okay. But you say anything satirical, legitimately funny, oh my God, that's offensive. Don't say that. I think what truly happens when a society becomes dumbed down is we lose our sense of perspective. We can't even truly decipher what is a real offense and what's just a joke. What's just a funny joke? Well, I don't know about you, but on this 4th of July, I can tell the difference. And I am going to have myself a royal good time. To everybody out there, I hope that you're enjoying your time with your family, that you are celebrating, marking your blessings, pondering the great sacrifices that have been made to give us our freedoms, enjoying every minute of the sun, the barbecue, the company, and saying to the good Lord above, thank you for allowing me to live in the greatest nation in the history of the world. This is Dr. Grace wishing you all a happy 4th and looking forward to being with you again next week. I am, as always, upholding values that will not die.
In an extraordinary place where the stars and stripes and the eagle fly.
This is American Heartland with Dr. Grace.